since over 3,000 people perished in the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. On Discovery Channel now, an intimate tribute, 9/11, Lost and Found.
When the Trade Center was built, everyone thought that those buildings would be around for hundreds of years. I mean, they were two of the largest buildings in the world.
This was our home, and we lost a lot of people, and we have this moral obligation to preserve and protect these items.
I didn't care how she came back, as long as she came home. But she didn't.
The simple items, they all tell a story. They tell who the people in that building were. They tell that these were people doing what every American has the right to do, work to provide for their family. They suddenly have this magical and mystical power of telling a story of such immense disaster.
You prayed every day that you would find something.
And it was the only thing we had. So it became everything.
I've never opened it before until this moment. And it's evoking a lot of feeling.
We had looked into the eyes of the family members of the people who died when they came up here.
Really, the most important thing was giving something back to the victims' families.
Right, Mommy's badge. And up there is
Mommy's handcuffs.
Our handcuffs.
We first realized that we had to do something to preserve and document the World Trade Center, September 11th, the day it happened. I realized that we were living through a huge piece of world history.
It's amazing what we were able to find. You know, over 50, 60,000 different pieces of property.
Somebody drove the car to work on September 11th, behind this wheel.
It wasn't just a vehicle, it was actually a life cut short. Everything from the push door sign on the World Trade Center to the evacuation sign to even the little glass marble that was picked up out of the debris field, all of that now has been linked to that terrible day and the loss of those families by that one moment.
The 78th floor in both the South and the North Tower. That was the elevator bank for going to different levels of the Trade Center from the sky lobby. And the 78th floor, the South Tower, is where the plane came in. You think about the people who were standing on the 78th floor at that time. People meeting to go to lunch, people meeting to go home. How many times have you stood in front of an elevator, pressing the button 6 times and looking at these signs, you know, waiting patiently for the elevator to come by? You know, and here's a little piece of the history just grabbed, you know, especially from a floor such as this. It's pretty moving to see it like this, to see it bent. This I find particularly interesting because I remember this. But even you take something like this little memento, this little plate, and you know that across America or across the world, somebody bought this from the observation deck and it's hanging in somebody's house.
The World Trade Center was a city in and of itself. 50,000 people worked there. 80,000 people visited every day. We had people from every continent in the world, the most diverse population you could expect. But that's what you would expect. It was the World Trade Center. It was a place totally dedicated to bringing the world together.
Coming from this train station, you could look up at these beautiful towers and just, wow, I work there. And the hustle and bustle of the city and being a part of all of that, you felt really privileged being there. The inside of the World Trade Center was such a beautiful place. I worked on the 40th floor, got to my desk, started reading emails, preparing for the day. Got something to eat, and then the tower swayed. Computer started lighting up, fizzling.
Right before the first building came down, I was on VC and West Street, and I never looked up at the Trade Center. I was just concentrating on the people down below to make sure that whoever I saw, I could scream to get them out of there. And I started hearing the tremendous roar. It was almost like a freight train going over your head. And the big cloud emerged. And we started running away. As we were running, you could feel the debris flying by you. You could feel the shrapnel in the air.
When I was walking down the stairway, a fireman was walking up. I saw an EMT worker also going up the stairs. I recall him speaking to an older gentleman and a gentleman in a wheelchair, asking them if they were okay. I found that very comforting.
When I got down to ground zero and I saw that you had 110 stories of building reduced to about 5 stories of wreckage.
On 9/11, I was scheduled to work. I had taken off because it was my daughter's first day of preschool. When I arrived at the World Trade Center, the rescue and the recovery operation that day, even though I had heard that the towers had collapsed, I think in the back of my mind when I got there, I expected to see them standing. I saw this big pile of steel being engulfed in smoke. There was literally hundreds of people scurrying around, setting up equipment. Everyone was searching.
In the initial stages of the recovery process, the remains of the Trade Center were being brought to Fresh Kills via barge and truck.
When I was first deployed to Staten Island, I really didn't have any idea what Fresh Kills stood for or what it meant or anything like that. And eventually it was explained to me that it was Dutch. The word kills was Dutch for stream. I remember coming up here on the 12th, coming up the same road, and they were just starting to bring the first parts of the trade center here. It was just completely flat. It was like the moon. I mean, it was just dirt as far as the eye could see.
They told me to come up to Fresh Kills on about noon of the 13th. And I remember coming up here and just seeing the lone police department temporary headquarters vehicle up there. And looking around and saying, okay, we're here. How do we do this?
A city started to arise out of Fresh Kills. You had portable water wagons, you had portable lighting. The Army came in, set up a mess tent. The police department came in with all their units. They had counseling units, they had portable morgue.
We got the trade center down to a 1/4 inch size. New York City police officers who received training in what to look for, and they would turn around and they would pick off the items that we were looking for and the items that we committed to the families that we would try and find. Human remains, personal property, and evidence.
Is our wedding picture. And of course, a picture of us and Patricia on her first St. Patrick's Day. Anyone that met Moira I think was attracted to us. You know, vivacious personality, beautiful smile, you know, a genuine person. And she had a good heart. You know, she was out to help people. She was conscientious and she was fearless. You know, she was the first one up the stairs, first one in the doorway. You know, she was not afraid. One of us would always be with Patricia. We would actually take Patricia into work with us and switch her off as we were coming in and out of the building. On September 11th, I was watching Patricia. Moira was doing a day tour. She went down with a van full of other officers from the 13th precinct and ran into the South Tower from the main concourse. This picture was taken right after the first plane hit the first tower, and Moira is seen in the foreground, you know, taking a distraught woman back to the precinct for questioning, you know, as a witness. She worked her way up to the 3rd floor, you know, bringing out an asthmatic woman and several other people, an injured banker, and then eventually worked back down to the lobby. And that's when she was in the lobby with several other officers when the building collapsed. Moira saved a lot of lives that day. When I went back down to Ground Zero, the volunteers were lined up all over just to go in there and help out. People coming in from all over with shovels and pickaxes and buckets. And you know, you can't thank them enough. And these guys never stopped working. March 20th in 2002, they recovered Moira's body about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning.
They recovered her with her weapon and her police shield that was enshrined in the New York City Police Museum.
And what are those things?
The keys and the picture of me in it.
The picture of you in it, right? And up there is?
Mommy's handcuffs.
Her handcuffs. And a whole belt. See, it's the same belt she was wearing. And what's that say underneath it? Can you read that? No, not yet. It says Smith, just like your name. 13 precinct. Okay. There was I don't even know what they call them, but you'll look through them, they have a picture in it that we each had one of us and Patricia. And hers was still on a keychain. It was sad but it gave me a laugh at the time too. You know, I had to, you know, it just reminded me of Moira, and you couldn't think of Moira and not laugh. and that helped the healing process. The personal effects also, you know, it felt like, all right, I still have, you know, something that was close to her, you know, and that's something that I can show Patricia, you know, as she gets older, you know, something for her to, you know, to physically be able to touch and hold and understand. But I think she understands it now, is what a, you know, what a good-hearted, heroic person her mother was. Not just, you know, because of what she did on 9/11, but because what she did every day of her life.
This is Hangar 17 at Kennedy International Airport. What we have here is slightly more than 1/100th of 1% of what was once the World Trade Center complex. Hangar 17 is where the vast majority of the larger items are held. Every one of the objects in this 80,000 square foot hangar has a deep emotional resonance. And it's our job to protect and preserve these things so that people can appreciate them in whatever setting the memorial ultimately happens to be. Now this was a straight piece of steel. The really horrifying thing about this is it represents just the horrific violence of the act. I mean, there isn't a machine on the planet that can do that. We have a piece of sculpture by Alexander Calder that I used to walk by 3 or 4 times a week. That is in 5 pieces, in just shards. We have many pieces of the antenna that were on the top of World Trade Center 1. Now this antenna, you have to remember, was over 350 feet tall. You could almost see it from Pennsylvania. This is a bicycle rack that was taken from outside of Vesey Street. This is how it was.
You basically have 6, 7 bikes here, I guess. You know, each one of them belonged to somebody there that day, so you obviously have a story behind every one of them.
You start to think about the entire city of New York, from the messenger getting paid by his deliveries or his routes,
sure,
to the stockbroker. Time just stopped.
Michelle was a 27-year-old, very vibrant, bubbly little girl. Very small in stature, but a heart of gold. A very selfless person. Michelle was an administrative assistant fiduciary trust on the 97th floor of World Trade Center 2.
On September 11th, I called her office and was able to get her on the phone. And she sounded nervous in her voice. She said something happened in the other building. She said there's a lot of smoke. I said, Michelle, get out of the building. And she said that, you know, they were going to try and get out soon.
My heart was like a spear through it. I would sit by that window, my window, and I'd say, Michelle, come home now. It's time to come home.
Jimmy called the house and had said that something was recovered of Michelle's at the landfill, and you know, he wanted to return it. And he stopped by. It was a credit card.
And the way I looked at it was that something was coming back of my daughter. She got this credit card for the New York Jets because her boyfriend was a Jet fan. And every time she made purchases, she earned points to get tickets for the Jet games. That's what joy she had. It was never about Michelle. It was always about giving to someone else.
The card itself, I don't think really means anything. I mean, it's, you know, it's like just the thought that it was Michelle's. It was something that she had, and now it's something that we have. It's just something that she touched, something that she used.
Actually, when I look at that credit card, I wish I could hold it in my hand and have her here with it. And that's the way I feel about it. She's always around. She really is.
For anyone that doesn't know him, Todd is my brother. And I was just studying in Florence, and I just got back 2 days ago.
At the age of 9, Todd suffered from a childhood anxiety syndrome. He was unable to go to school. Our family worked together during that difficult period from 3rd grade to the 6th grade when Todd did not go to school. And when Todd recovered, he never looked back. Todd went from that frightened child to manhood and became a graduate of the University of Michigan and a broker at Cantor Fitzgerald. On September 11th, Todd and I went to work together as we did every day. So I said to Todd, "Have a great day, sweetheart." And those are my last words to Todd. And I'm the last person in my family to be with him on that day. I always go back to September 11th and think about where Todd was on that day. Because I remember the office and I try to visualize what he lived with. Todd was on the 105th floor of Tower 1. I'm on the 77th floor of my office, and the building trembles, shakes, and a glass case in my office explodes. When I got to the bottom of this World Trade Center and got outside and I looked back and I could see the fire just gushing out of the windows. I started to walk up Broadway, thinking about Todd, crying and trying to reach him. And a young African-American man, I'll never forget him, he came over and he said, "Sir, I'll stay with you. I'll be with you." And he walked with me. Todd called his mother. He called her to tell her that she would hear there was an explosion at the World Trade Center. But she shouldn't worry. He was okay, he told her, and he was going to the stairs. So here was a child that suffered from panic attacks, and at a time when he was in his greatest danger, he reached out to his mother to protect her. That tells you a lot about the road that Todd traveled. And what eats me today, and will take me to the grave, obviously, is to think about what Todd lived through, what he faced. Did he cry? Was he afraid? Did he think there was hope? I don't know. But I know one thing. He knew I was with him. We were all with him. My whole family was with him on those stairs. It took about a year before we heard anything. We received a call from the city property clerk's office that they had recovered Todd's wallet. And I got in the car and I raced into the city to recover it. I believe that the recovery of Todd's personal effects is important to our own recovery. Todd's wallet, his medical card, or his Metro card, his Visa card, some of his business cards, his driver's license. And now we prize it. We've brought him home, in effect, in a small way.
Behold!
I remember I was actually in college studying engineering at the time when those buildings were being built, and watched them rise out of the ground in lower Manhattan and track the construction. They were built out of steel, solid steel, and I never imagined that those buildings would be gone in my lifetime. No one could ever imagine that.
There was this enormous physical scale. You would get a crick in your neck looking up at the tops of the buildings, and you had to look up. You couldn't not look up. And the flip side of it was that it was an incredibly human place.
World Trade Center was like a city unto itself. I mean, it was vibrant. I mean, there were over 50,000 people a day working there, all different walks of life, office workers, professionals, secretaries, food caterers, food services. It was a real cross-section.
You'd get to know the building engineers, you even knew the security guards, the elevator operators, the tenants who were moving in, and the owners. And you'd literally meet hundreds of people and walk in there in the morning and see them all again day after day after day.
James was a local 3 electrician, and he had been assigned to complete electrical work for Aon Company in the South Tower. At the tender age of 26, he was taken from us way too soon.
For a good month, our family just stayed in this house, sitting with each other, crying together, adjusting to my brother not being around. I was one of 3 family members to first visit Fresh Kills to see what was going on there. Fresh Kills was a massive project and a major system of people and different technologies all working together just to find something of value. It didn't matter how small it was. At the end of my tour, Fresh Kills, I still get very emotional when I think about it, because I saw all these men and women working, and I looked at it as really like all these people are looking for my brother. There was a great deal of pride and honor that went along with it, and it meant a great deal to me.
No one would have imagined that these 2 buildings that represented so much for New York City would have come down. And even though he didn't come out alive, and they still haven't found his body, I know that he's safe in God's arms. Warren worked for the Port Authority Police Department PATH train at the World Trade Center. He wanted the very best for Amanda.
Hi, honey. Hi.
Hi, Daddy. Hi.
What a beautiful day.
He would often come home late at night and would go in her room and wake her up, or he would just stand there and watch her breathing. Warren had premonitions, and he kept fighting in his sleep. On September 10th, that morning about 4 a.m., I had gotten up and I was preparing myself for work. And he came into the restroom and he said, honey, it doesn't look good. And I said, what doesn't look good? He says, I could see myself on the floor. My legs are crushed, they're hurting, and I'm crying for my mommy. And I said, this is too vivid. What are you talking about? He says, I don't know. And you could see the pain in his eyes. I could remember that day as if it was yesterday. I try to remain strong, try to hope for the best, try to have faith, but I could feel it, that something was not right.
April Walman Stewart.
He stayed at his post. I was told that after he evacuated everyone from downstairs, he ran upstairs and was assisting an elderly man who was injured in his head. That was his job. He loved being a police officer, and he would have stayed there to take the last person out with him. Walman's handcuffs were returned to me about a year later, and they knew it was his handcuffs because he had etched his initials in it, and the serial number went back to his days with NYPD. It smells like smoke. Whoa. This was actually recovered from Ground Zero. It's just sad to think that from your loved one's remains, this is all that you can get back.
Myself and my then K-9 partner, Cirrus, was assigned to the World Trade Center to search trucks, clear areas for VIPs, unattended packages, the things that a bomb dog team does. About 8:46, of course, the first plane hit Tower 1. I told Cirrus that to stay in his cage and I would come back and get him, and I proceeded to Tower 1 to help with the rescue effort. I got as far as the 44th floor. We started working our way down the staircase, clearing the floors as we were going down. We received the order to evacuate Tower 1. We got down as far as the 5th floor, and that's where I saw this woman sitting on the steps. I stopped, and I picked her up, and I started to carry her down with another fireman, Billy Butler. We got down probably one more floor when I started to hear the building shake, and I realized at this point that it was our building that was collapsing. And threw Josephine to the ground, and Billy and myself covered her up. And it must have lasted, I guess, about 15 seconds. It felt like an eternity. As the floors were compacting on top of each other, you could hear them going one after like pancaking, one, bam, 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 and getting louder and louder and faster and faster. And it felt like forever. And all I can remember was that, I kept on thinking about my family. When I finally came to, I couldn't see anything and I could hardly breathe, but I was still alive. Myself, 12 firefighters, and one civilian, Josephine Harris, were the only survivors left in the middle of the building. We were trapped for about 5 hours, working our way, trying to find different ways to get out of where we were. Sometime, I guess it was around 3 o'clock, we saw a light coming from what we thought was the 6th floor. We started digging towards that light, and it turns out that light was the sun. Ladder Company 43 from the Bronx came and threw us ropes in order to get out. I believe there were maybe 4 or 5 other people besides the people in that stairwell that actually survived the collapse of the Trade Center. Some people say it was divine intervention, structural engineering, and a whole lot of luck. I believe it's a lot of combination of all 3 of those things.
For 9 months, I ran the recovery operation at the World Trade Center. It was a life-altering experience.
The operation was 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I remember thinking when we worked there, a week there was like a month on any other job or any other kind of event. Everyone that was working there had such purpose and dedication and feeling that really wanted to be there and help and find people and recover from this awful event.
Of the 1,400 or so cars that were out at Fresh Kills, we have about 20 of them in here.
You know, most of these guys were responding, and you don't know the stories behind who got out of the fire engine alive and who didn't.
The fire department encompassed Brian. It was his whole life. We met when we were 16, so I knew what I was in for. And he was a magnificent man who was dedicated to his job, his family, and to be his wife made me unbelievably happy. The last time I spoke to Brian was Tuesday morning, September 11th, and he said, "Love ya, see you tonight," like he did a million times. I think I realized he wasn't coming home in October on my son's 10th birthday. And if Brian was alive, the way I rationalized it was he would have been home for that. Never would have missed Kevin's birthday. And I think that's when it hit me. The helmet was returned to me the Easter of 2002. I slept with it. I remember, stupid, but I slept with it for like 2 nights. And then I figured this is not healthy, this is not good. And I gave the helmet back. And that was it. The helmet gave me the strength to call it quits. The helmet gave me the concrete evidence that it was time to call it quits. Rescue Company 4, remember our fallen brothers, Brian C. Hickey. And in retrospect, you look back now and you wish you could just have that little window into the future. Probably would have put my arms around him or something, I don't know. I just said, all right, talk to you tonight, love you. Like it was any other day. Any other day. But we did get to say it, so thank God.
Tower 2 was right over in here. Right over in there, leaning up over.
All Liberty Street and West Street were completely blocked by the components of the building.
If we were looking here, you'd be looking up about 110 stories, 1,350 feet.
The last column actually started to evolve sometime in March of 2002. It was actually a column from the core of Tower 2.
Where that column came up, you would have been right by the elevator bank in the corner of where it was located. If you projected it up, probably thousands and thousands of people every day came to work past that corner of that building, taking the elevators, going through the revolving doors. Someday it'll probably be part of a memorial, and maybe thousands of people will pass that column again.
That column became not only significant in terms of being the last piece of steel and the last piece of the towers that we decided was going to be removed from the site, but it was also in a location where we happened to find the most people in one cluster on the site. And so it had significance both from terms of the recovery and also in terms of being the last piece of steel. And the column kind of evolved with the names and pictures of people that were lost. It just seemed to become almost a little memorial in itself as time went on.
We needed something to take out of the site or to bring down at the site as a closure for the workers.
We came up with the idea that the last column would be driven out of the site to an honor guard of all the different agencies that had participated in the rescue.
The truck and the last beam were driven off the site to Kennedy Airport, where it was stored in Hangar 17.
I personally feel that the last column should be the memorial from that site for people to look at and remember. That last column is history.
The very top of the column depicts the number 37. That's symbolic of the number of Port Authority police officers that were killed on September 11th. The number 23 symbolizes the 23 New York City police officers that were killed. And the number 343 symbolizes the number of New York City firemen that were killed. On the other side of it, we felt that we also needed to recognize the number of civilians that were killed. And at the time, that number was 2,427. So we felt that we wanted that everybody that was lost at the site was recognized on that beam. This is a PAPD ESU. My brothers, you ran into hell, now you walk with angels. May God keep you safe. We thank you all. Till we meet again, Godspeed. Love you all. Murph.
Says Charlie Heron, you are in everyone's prayers. God bless you. From Bernie Heron.
This is a picture of Moira Smith from the 13th precinct of NYPD. She was killed that day.
Joseph R. Marchbanks, Jr., husband, father, son, brother, uncle, friend, nephew, cousin, coach, teacher, craftsman, jet fan, firefighter, our hero.
Here's a message here for Philip Hayes, who was born in 1934 and died on September 11th. It says, "Grieve not, nor speak of me with tears, but laugh and talk of me as though I were beside you. I loved you so. 'Twas heaven here with you."
Even as we move further and further away from September 11th, you, in a lot of ways, think that you're going to wake up and, realize it was just a bad dream.
We don't have any personal effects of my brother from that day, but we have, in my opinion, something far more sacred. We have my brother. We have him. And I have him in my heart. And we carry him every day.
And 9/11 brought it to the forefront, but it goes on every day. How America responded. These guys are doing it today, they're going to do it tomorrow. I appreciate it. And my family appreciated it. We still do.
I don't want to share the horror of what happened, but what I want to share with her is the fact that her father stayed in the building to help to save people without thinking of his own life. He wanted us to be there to share our lives with others, to bear others' burdens, to lay down our lives for our friends. And I want to share that with her.
And I try to understand what happened. But the best that I can say is that we as a family will fight through this and use our pain, try to translate our pain and transform our pain into hope for other people in Todd's name and spirit. And that is very important to us.
It doesn't make a difference what religion you follow, but there is a spiritual being, and if he embraced them, you know that they're being held by him. And if he took them from this earth to a better life, they're in that better life to show us the new light.
I think that we have learned to accept that our life as we knew it, as we wanted it to be, as we expected it, is going to be very, very different. Doesn't have to be bad, doesn't have to stink. It could still have some good, but it's always going to be bittersweet for me anyway. Not for my children, I hope, but for me, it's bittersweet, and you just learn to cope with that. You just learn to say, if you're having a good day and you're singing to a song on the radio, well, grab the moment. And that's what we do. That's what I do. I grab the moment.
Coming up next, we search for the secrets of an ancient and opulent civilization. Lost Temple to the Gods is after the break.